was she like to work with?
Judy, oh, it was just fabulous. She was so wonderful to children.
From that point on, her life was a downward spiral.
Somewhere over the rainbow. As we started from Huntington Dale.
Was a huge Hollywood star, she wasn't ever able to truly make it over the rainbow.
The life of Judy Garland was simply one big tragedy. From being an unwanted child to getting hooked on medication for toxic dieting and even getting essayed by Hollywood executives, Judy went through it all in her short life. Garland's co-actor, Margaret O'Brien, had a sit-down with That Pop Culture Show in 2021, where she discussed the life and times of Judy Garland. For someone with such a poignant life, you'd never know it if you just saw her. Like seeing where she's playing games like jump rope and jacks during breaks.
Treated me like a serious actress, but also she was fun to be around too.
Yeah.
And when we had a break, she would jump rope with me.
Or is it here where she's laughing so hard together that they were unable to cry on set when called upon to do so?
That was the one scene I had a hard time crying.
Oh.
Because Judy and I were kind of laughing.
O'Brien discussed it all. So let's get into it and see why Judy's life became a sad story with a sad ending. The story of Judy Garland, the legendary American actress and singer, is a tragic one that began even before her birth. She was born to parents Frank and Ethel Gum in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, a couple whose lives were intertwined with the world of vaudeville theater. However, what should have been a joyous event, the arrival of a new member into the family, was anything but. Judy Garland's entry into the world was marked by the fact that her parents never wanted her. In fact, her birth was a surprise that they didn't welcome, and the circumstances surrounding it tell a somber tale of an era when options for dealing with unwanted pregnancies were grim. It was the 1920s, and abortion was illegal in the United States. This put Frank and Ethel Gum in a difficult predicament when they found themselves facing an unplanned pregnancy. Their only option, if they chose not to have the child, would have been a back alley abortion, a perilous procedure that carried serious health risks for the mother. So in June 1922, Judy Garland was born into a world where her parents didn't want her, a circumstance that undoubtedly cast a shadow over her early life. The name Judy Garland, so familiar to all, was not the name she was given at birth. Instead, she was known as Frances Ethel Gum. It's a name that lacks the star-studded glamour that we associate with her. Judy Garland, the name that she later adopted, has a resonance that fits her legendary status. This change in name marked her journey from an unwanted child to the cherished entertainer we came to love. One cannot help but wonder why Frank and Ethel Gum did not want another child. While there is no concrete evidence to confirm this, speculation abounds that Frank was having extramarital affairs with men at the time. Regardless of the reasons behind their reluctance to welcome another child, Judy Garland's early home life was marked by unhappiness and instability. In a later interview, decades after the tumultuous events of her childhood, Judy Garland recounted some of the marital conflicts that unfolded within her family. She reflected, "As I recall, my parents were separating and getting back together all the time. It was very hard for me to understand those things. And of course, I remember clearly the fear I had of those separations." Her recollections reveal the emotional turbulence that surrounded her during her formative years, leaving a lasting impact on her psyche. Amidst the turmoil of her family life, there was one silver lining that Frank and Ethel Gum inadvertently provided their daughter: an introduction to the world of show business. Their involvement in running a vaudeville theater exposed Judy to the stage at an early age. This exposure was the spark that ignited the flame of her extraordinary talent. It was within the theater's walls that she discovered her love for singing and performing, a passion that would eventually propel her to international stardom. Garland's remarkable journey into the world of entertainment began when she was just 2.5 years old. At that tender age, she performed a rendition of Jingle Bells at a Christmas show, giving the first glimpse of her prodigious talent that would later captivate the hearts of millions. But this early exposure to the stage was not only the start of a love affair with performance, it also unveiled a darker aspect of her life, one that would leave a lasting impact on her psyche. As a young child, Judy Garland not only showcased her budding talents as a solo performer, but also joined her two sisters, Mary Jane and Dorothy Virginia, to form a trio known as the Gum Sisters. These early performances marked the beginning of a family journey into show business, one that would eventually propel Judy into international stardom. While on the surface, this might seem like an idyllic introduction to a future in the spotlight, it concealed a poignant truth about her early years. In retrospect, Judy Garland would reveal the deeper emotional turmoil that lurked behind the scenes of her childhood performances. She confessed, "The only time I felt wanted when I was a kid was when I was on stage performing." These words cut straight to the heart of her experiences, highlighting the stark contrast between her life on and off the stage. It was on stage that she found solace, acceptance, and a sense of belonging, but it was a fleeting sensation that eluded her the moment the curtains fell. The dichotomy of her life, where the applause of the audience served as a temporary respite from the struggles of her family life, paints a poignant picture of the young prodigy. The world saw a precocious and gifted child, but behind the scenes, she grappled with the challenges of a family in turmoil. However, when it came to advancing Judy's career, Judy's mother did everything, including exchanging favors with Hollywood executives in exchange for roles.
Something she didn't tell Barbara. Gerald Clark learned from a childhood friend that young Judy always suspected her mother traded for favors with producers and studio execs.
A tragic event unfolded in Judy Garland's life when her father, Frank, passed away during her early years, coinciding with the time she inked her contract with MGM. For those unfamiliar with MGM, it was an infamous agency notorious for exploiting children and churning out films with them in the past. Now, in 1935, when Judy Garland entered into her initial contract with MGM, she was just 13 years old. The studio insisted that she retain a youthful appearance for as long as possible, which meant she had to undergo a continuous diet regimen and have her chest bound to maintain a less mature look. What's particularly troubling about this situation is that Judy's mother appeared to be complicit in allowing these Hollywood executives to subject her daughter to such treatment, including starvation and physical constraints. It's difficult to fathom the psychological toll this must have taken on her mental health. Furthermore, there was a disconcerting studio executive at MGM by the name of Louis Mayer who unquestionably exploited Judy. As the prominent figure at MGM, he went so far as to nickname Judy his little hunchback. What is particularly disturbing about this man is that he manipulated Judy into believing that such treatment was ordinary. He would compliment her by saying, "Your singing comes from the heart. It's truly beautiful." And then he would engage in inappropriate physical contact, squeezing and touching her left chest region where her heart was located, which was deeply inappropriate and offensive. "Keep in mind, this is a 13-year-old. I often thought I was lucky," Judy observed later on, "that I didn't sing with another part of my anatomy." That scenario, a compliment followed by a grope, was repeated many times until grown up at last, Judy put a stop to it. "Mr. Mayer, don't you ever, ever do that again." She finally had the courage to say, "I just will not stand for it." However, the exec often played the gaslighting game expertly, acting as if her accusations were ludicrous. With a sly smile, he'd quip, "Wait, what are you talking about? I'm like a father figure to you." It's worth noting that Judy had already lost her real father, so now she had this studio head who was crossing boundaries, and when she dared to speak up, he smoothly deflected by playing the father figure card. Quite the scandalous manipulation, wouldn't you say? Anyway, now Judy was not only being harassed, but also getting underpaid.
Judy Garland was paid $500 a week. The only named player paid less, the Cairn Terrier who played Toto. He got $125.
Now, aside from this, Judy's encounter with substance AB and toxic dieting was horrific.
She was on the same treadmill of drugs, getting up late, coming in late to work, and it turned into a nightmare for everybody concerned.
Judy was quite the petite starlet, standing at a mere 4'11". Her naturally delicate frame was subjected to even more dieting and substances that took her to the extreme. According to one of Judy's ex-husbands, she practically lived on Benzedrine and strict diets throughout her adolescence and adult life. He spilled the beans, saying, "Unlike other actresses, Judy couldn't hide any extra weight, especially with all that dancing and revealing costumes." At just 4'11", even being underweight could make her look out of proportion on the screen. But here's where it gets insane. MGM had a ruthless grip on Judy's eating habits. Imagine this. They actually hired people to snatch food right out of her hands. That's right, she wasn't allowed to eat what she wanted. Instead, they handed her black coffee and up to 80 cigarettes a day to curb her appetite. And that's not all. Judy was also on a cocktail of substances, which is still mind-boggling. They had a doctor on the payroll who would prescribe her sedatives, amphetamines, and various other mind-altering substances to control her and keep her from indulging in food. Shockingly, she was just 18 at the time, and all of these substances basically paved the way for her substance addiction.
Because they'd given her a pill to sleep. Now they had to give her a pill so she'd be, not groggy in the morning on the set.
They didn't mean to addict her. They were trying to get a picture finished.
What's even worse was that young Judy wanted to stop the medication, but she knew the executives would never allow her.
She did complain to me once that she would love to stop it all, but she doesn't know how. She says, you can't go tell Mr. Mayor, you won't do it. She knew there was no way that she could turn and, refuse this medication.
Over time, Judy became ensnared by these substances. In fact, her ex-husband wrote in his book that her justification for using these substances was her supposed weight issue. However, the truth was that she had developed a dependency on these substances, and she couldn't even perform in front of the cameras without them. She had become fully addicted. All of this recurring substance use, coupled with her extreme diet, had a devastating impact on Judy. She started to become excessively thin, experiencing hair loss, and there seemed to be no way for her to seek help. Her weight dropped precipitously, her hair was falling out, and the studio recommended a doctor who resorted to administering shock treatments. Judy Garland's life was clearly marked by an array of challenges, and one individual who failed to offer solace or support was her own mother. In a revealing 1967 interview with Barbara Walters, Judy disclosed a distressing aspect of her childhood. She recounted how her mother would often be present in the wings when she was just a little girl. However, instead of providing comfort or understanding, her mother adopted a harsh approach. Judy explained that when she didn't feel well or was sick to her stomach, her mother's response was chilling. She would threaten Judy, saying, "You get out there and sing, or I'll wrap you around the bedpost and break you off short." The image painted by Judy's recollection is one of an unrelenting and unsympathetic maternal figure who used coercion and intimidation to compel her young daughter to perform. This must have been a truly traumatic and nightmarish experience for Judy, to have your own mother there, seemingly forcing you into situations you desperately wish to avoid. It becomes apparent that Judy's mother, far from providing the nurturing and protective care expected from a parent, saw her talented daughter as a means to an end. It's evident that she exploited Judy for financial gain, using her talents and success as a source of income rather than considering her well-being or emotional needs. The emotional scars left by such a tumultuous upbringing undoubtedly contributed to the challenges and hardships Judy faced throughout her life. In any case, Garland was not only a prolific actress, but a wife and mother as well. Along with her well-known struggles with depression and substance abuse, the Tony Award winner spent most of her life searching for love, tying to knot 5 times over 5 decades. Garland married composer and band leader David Rose in 1941, 2 years after The Wizard of Oz was released. On the day of their wedding, Garland was 19 while Rose was 31. While Garland's mother objected to the matrimony, the Academy Award winner ignored her wishes, and the two tied the knot in secret in Las Vegas, while a justice of the peace presided over the ceremony. The pair eventually moved in together in Los Angeles. However, they called it quits after Garland discovered she was pregnant and her mother arranged for her to have an abortion. The two officially divorced in 1944. Garland met Vincente Minnelli in 1944, the same year she divorced Rose, after she starred in the director's film Meet Me in St. Louis. The two tied the knot in 1945 after the film's release and welcomed their daughter Liza 1 year later. Margaret O'Brien talked about this stage in Judy's life and described it as a happy time for the actress.
It was a very happy time for Judy because she was having a romance with Vincent Minnelli.
Yeah.
However, Garland suffered from postpartum depression and stepped down from the limelight for over a year after welcoming her first child. She went on to have a mental crisis that would cause her to enter a psychiatric facility. Her first film back on the big screen was The Pirate in 1948, alongside Gene Kelly. As tension grew in her marriage to Minnelli, Garland requested that he step down from director of her upcoming movie Easter Parade, and the couple called it quits that same year. While Garland and Sid Luft met in the late 1930s, the twosome didn't get together until 1952. After the pair began dating, Luft served as Garland's manager. Under his guidance, the summer stock star booked shows at Carnegie Hall and various television specials. The two wed in 1952 and welcomed their daughter Lorna that same year. 3 years later, Garland gave birth to their son Joey. In 1954, Luft produced A Star is Born for Garland, which earned her an Academy Award nomination for lead actress. The film itself also earned 5 additional recognitions. However, Garland's addiction to substance and alcohol began to grow, and the two divorced in 1965 after 13 years of marriage. During the divorce proceedings, the Strike Up the Band actress claimed Luft was an alcoholic who beat her numerous times. He denied the allegations, but she still won custody of their children. Garland met husband known for, Mark Herron, in 1964, when she was still married to Luft. Herron was producing 2 shows at the London Palladium for Garland at the time. The two quickly entered a whirlwind romance following her divorce from Luft. They were married by November 1965. At the time of their split, Garland made claims of AB, which Herron admitted, claiming he only struck the In the Good Old Summertime actress out of self-defense. In 1966, according to Dean's book, Weep No More, My Lady, he first met Garland at her hotel in New York City. A mutual friend of theirs asked Deans, who was 12 years younger than the icon, to deliver a package of amphetamines to the singer's room at the St. Regis. He was dressed as a doctor, and he gave Garland her medicine. The two dated for 3 years before getting engaged in 1969 and tied the knot shortly after. The couple rented a house following their nuptials. By the late 1960s, Garland's addictions and emotional issues were draining not only her health, but her finances as well. As Judy showed, she returned to doing shows in London to support herself and her children. Garland had previously seen success doing a concert series in London back in the early 50s and likely hoped to reproduce that success. "I'm the queen of the comeback," Garland said in 1968. "I'm getting tired of coming back. I really am. I can't even go to the powder room without making a comeback." London, however, wasn't the unblemished renaissance she needed. Her Welcome Back tour was a microcosm of the songstress' long career, with the same startling highs and crushing lows. When Judy was on, she could make the audience fall in love with her the way she always had, beckoning them with that creamy voice that captivated the world. However, when she was off, she couldn't mask it for the crowd. One January show proved that after the audience pelted her with bread and glasses, when Garland kept them waiting for an hour. Amid Garland's career struggles, London also represented possibly the worst romantic period of her life. Garland met her last husband when he delivered substances to her hotel in 1966. But Garland and Mickey Dean's marriage was not a very happy one. He allegedly was mostly with her to make a quick buck and enjoy his close proximity to fame. Judy's daughter Lorna Luft recalled that on the way out of her mother's funeral, Deans insisted that their limousine pull over at a Manhattan office. She realized that he was apparently striking a book deal, mere hours after his wife was laid to rest. Deans and Garland were still very much a couple when he found her dead in their Belgravia home on June 22, 1969. He broke into a locked bathroom door and discovered Garland slumped on the toilet with her hands still holding up her head. The Scotland Yard autopsy recorded that Judy Garland's cause of death was barbiturate poisoning, quinabarbatone, incautious self-overdosage, accidental. The coroner, Dr. Gavin Thurston, found evidence of cirrhosis of the liver, likely due to the copious amount of alcohol had Garland consumed throughout her life. This is quite clearly an accidental circumstance to a person who was accustomed to taking barbiturates over a very long time, Dr. Thurston said on Judy Garland's cause of death. She took more barbiturates than she could tolerate. Garland's daughter, Liza Minnelli, had a different perspective. She felt that her mother died more from exhaustion than anything else. Though Judy Garland died when she was only 47, she was exhausted from a long career in front of people, always feeling like she was never good enough. "She let her guard down," Minnelli said in 1972. "She didn't die from an overdose. I think she just got tired. She lived like a taut wire. I don't think she ever looked for real happiness because she always thought happiness would mean the end." When Judy Garland died, it did mean the end. It was the end of her heartfelt connection with her audience, and in some ways the end of an era. But it was also the beginning of her legacy. Even more than her lovely voice, a big part of Judy Garland's appeal was her ability to connect with her audience. In particular, gay men found a kindred spirit in Garland, particularly later in her career. Perhaps it had something to do with her representing resilience in the face of oppression, stemming from her many comebacks. Or maybe her image simply spoke to different elements within gay subculture subcultures. Garland's New York funeral coincided with the Stonewall riots, credited as a turning point in the gay rights movement. Some LGBT historians believe the grief over Garland's death may have even heightened tensions among the gay patrons of the Stonewall Inn and the police. Either way, the grief after Judy Garland's death was felt worldwide, from fans to her family and friends. Former film partner Mickey Rooney said, "She was a great talent and a great human being. She was, I'm sure, at peace and has found that rainbow. At least I hope she has." Like some other stars who died before her, such as Marilyn Monroe, some of Garland's staying power can be attributed to the lasting effect that a tragic figure casts in history. Meanwhile, fans have never gotten over Judy's tragic demise. "Judy's story has always made me so sad. Everyone around her failed her," one fan commented. Another fan added, "It's so tragic that she died a sick, underweight, substance-dependent woman who just wanted love and acceptance. Is that too much to ask? She deserves all the love and respect." Anyway, that's it for this video, folks. Bye.